stock from people that own the shares, and this is facilitated by the clearing firm or your stockbroker. They will lend you shares for you to go sell, and you can deliver to the buyer those shares that you borrowed. That's regular short selling. Now, why would you want to do a regular short sale? Because you think that the stock is going to go down. Okay? Now, on the other hand, if you think or have some inside information that the stock's going to go down, you can make a short sale if you're a market maker and you can legally not borrow those shares and fail to deliver the shares that you sold to the buyer. That's called naked short selling. Now, naked short selling has gotten the blame for being part of a systematic destruction of companies like Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, for an organized naked short selling by several people, and at the same time putting out negative information about the company. Now, Patrick Byrne from Overstock was kind of the leader of that allegation, and he claimed that the SEC was complicit, or at least wasn't wide awake and identified it. And so naked short selling is illegal. That is, again, the selling of stock without owning it and without delivering it to the buyer. Regular short selling is not illegal. It consists of selling stock that you don't own, but in fact borrowing it from somebody who does, which has been accommodated by the brokerage firm, and delivering those shares.
Do you think that it is ethical to borrow a stock that you don't own and sell it? Do you think that this is the way that we should be proceeding in commerce? I just have to ask you this.
Well, I'm sure there's people believe that should be eliminated altogether.
I know that you're deep in the whole field, and I want to know why you do or you don't feel it should be eliminated.
Well, when I was a trader, it was a part of the portfolio of things that you can do to reduce the risk. For example, if I'm a market maker and I'm making bids and offers in some puts, and people come in and start buying those puts, which they are saying they think the market's going to go down, and I'm selling it to them, that means that I'm getting into a position where I'm betting the market's going to go up. So I can hedge that position by going to do short selling of the stock, okay? And so actually options market makers have an exemption from the naked short selling rule, whereby if they are actually market makers who are making markets and want to protect their position of selling puts or having just bought a bunch of calls from somebody, they can do it without borrowing the stock. So if you're going to be a professional, sometimes it's necessary to be able to short sell the stock. If you're not going to be allowed to short sell the stock, then it reduces the tightness of your bids and offers that you're going to make in the calls and the puts. Okay, so it's a mechanism which professionals can use to manage their risk of their portfolios. Now, whether it should be allowed in general, that's not for me to say. I don't have a view there, but maybe the world would be better, or the markets would be better if they didn't allow short selling. But naked short selling is illegal by most of the public. Now, puts give you the right to get bearish without borrowing any stock and without even delivering any stock. You only have to deliver stock when you own puts, when you exercise the puts. You see? And so this whole argument that naked short selling caused the downfall of Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, in my view, is wrong.
So what's your view as to why they fell?
Because J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and the people that controlled them wanted to eliminate Bear Stearns, and perhaps even Lehman Brothers. I don't know how bad their portfolio was, but I know that the Federal Reserve Bank of New York lent $55 billion to J.P. Morgan based on Bear Stearns' encumbered collateral of $55 billion. In other words, Bear Stearns collapsed with unencumbered assets, which the Federal Reserve Bank of New York thought was good enough to lend them $55 billion on. But the $55 billion went to J.P. Morgan. You see, it didn't go to Bear Stearns. If they'd have lent the $55 billion to Bear Stearns would still be in business.
Got it.
You see,
Clear.
So that was a way of taking Bear Stearns out of the game and reducing the number of players. And that's what they did. Now, if you go read about the loan to J.P. Morgan, they'll be talking about $30 billion. Well, there was actually one loan for $25 billion, which went to Bear Stearns, but was part of the deal that it immediately goes to J.P. Morgan. And the other $30 billion went directly to J.P. Morgan, and 29 of which is non-recourse. In other words, they didn't have to pay it back. All they had to do was let the Fed keep that collateral. But they don't talk about that. They talk about how J.P. Morgan paid off their TARP money and that kind of stuff. But they haven't paid back that $55 billion that they got from the New York Fed, where the CEO of J.P. Morgan was responsible for making the decision about this bailout. You see? Anyway, I think that covers naked short selling.
It does cover it. All right, I want to go back to your work in Truth in Options, and I want you to talk about the ways in which employee stock options are, for the most part, not utilized and optimized. I want you to explain where you come from about this again.
Okay. Companies grant equity compensation to employees, managers, executives, and directors in the form of employee stock options, restricted stock, and other types of equity. They grant that in lieu of paying them cash or some other type of compensation. So the employees, the managers, and the executives often get a substantial part of their compensation in the form of these equity compensation, which includes employee stock options, which is the biggest element of the general equity compensation. Now, an average manager or an executive or an officer of a reasonably sized company, perhaps in Silicon Valley, where they do a lot of equity compensation in the form of employee stock options, he may have 75% of his wealth tied to the shares of the company he works for.
I want to empower your language, he or she.
I know, but
it's okay, but it's very, very important.
I resist change.
It's okay, but it's very important that this is in your language, because there are millions of women out there that have employee stock options.
Right. Well, I apologize.
That's okay. No problem.
Okay.
No problem.
But nevertheless, the companies pile up these people with equity compensation and employee stock options, or like the options that are traded on these exchanges. They give you the right to buy the stock at a specific price throughout a specific period of time. However, there are some substantial differences. One is that the employee stock options give you a